Well, you see, the unfortunate thing is I really wanted to start this stream by doing an impression of Russell Crowe's Zeus, but really thought it would come across as very offensive to start today's live stream. Janine, hello.
Morgan, hello. I mean, do we have any Greek people around who can like say how accurate that accent was supposed to be?
I can say that it felt appropriately bizarre because, you know, Zeus is weird, as my sign today says. Zeus be weird.
Yes,
And as my
it's
sign
very
will
fitting.
also say on tomorrow's episode of Monday Madness, Zeus be weird.
Yes, very
So,
weird.
yes, forgive me just posting things out. I see Steve, we have had in the chat already. Hello, Steve. We're talking about Thor Love and Thunder today.
Yes.
Our full spoiler discussion, full spoilers ahead for the MCU's latest offering.
Yes. So, I mean, since we are talking about Zeus Be Weird, he did leave a comment, a spoiler ish, slight spoiler comment. Um, yeah, Russell Crowe kind of being a little goofy did take the edge off of his kind of mid credit situation.
Are you suggesting we start off today's live stream by talking about the mid and post credit scenes of Thor Love
Well,
and
I
Thunder?
thought that was a good comment. So I mean,
It is a good comment.
we can circle back to it, or we can discuss it now.
It is a good comment. Steve's also put a comment saying that he thinks Taika maybe wasn't the best choice for the material, which is, I think, a bold statement, but we respect Steve and his statements.
Yes, I mean, I get where he's coming from, really, because I personally thought it was a little bit too jokey. I mean, Thor has, I think there's an argument as to which MCU character has been through the most. A lot of people say Wanda, but it kind of is Thor. Like he's
Thor's
lost
been through a lot.
everyone, like which we even see through tattoos on his back. Like I do watch my new rock stars breakdowns, and apparently one of those tattoos, like there was like a scroll and it has the names of all the people he lost, including Tony and Natasha. He has on there
Okay.
his parents, Loki, Heimdall, so he's dealt with a lot of loss. He's also kind of, you know th- they explore that he is lost in himself. He doesn't really know who he is. um he had this beautiful speech from his mother when he was kind of at his most lost, that you can't be who people expect you to be, just be who you are. And he's still trying to find that and figure that out. So I think that those are some deeper issues. I know you and me weren't too big of fans of how they treated Thor's kind of serious depression as a joke, like, okay,
Yeah.
you can make the Lebowski things here and there, and have him be a little silly here and there, but have it be that he's just masking a deeper pain. But they really just made a huge joke out of it, and so I wasn't a huge fan of that. And so in here, when we're dealing with kind of Thor trying to find himself, I've seen comments where he's kind of been turned into a bit of a himbo, which I'm kind of seeing that a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe it was a little too overboard on the jokiness, and not really, because you really could have gotten deeper with some of these interesting uh kind of emotional things that were happening with these characters, but instead it was like joke after joke after joke after joke, and then we kind of dealt with the emotional stuff later, so it was kind of a weird tone shift for me personally. So I get where he's coming from when he says maybe Taika wasn't equipped to handle the deeper things that were going on with these characters in this time.
Is that not the movie we were promised, though? Were we not promised
A jokey
goofy
thing.
comedy from
Yes, I mean,
this iteration of Thor? I think we were, so I don't think it's a bad thing, because I'm a fan of the humor in these Taika Thor movies. I'm a fan of Taika's humor and, you know, his similar kind of group of New Zealand people.
I mean, I am as well, but I mean, you're dealing with a lot of serious stuff here, and they didn't really deal with it until a certain point. So, I mean, we could have had more time kind of really delving into these characters and what they're kind of going through. Um, but we kind of lost time with those moments because, the jokey aspect was kind of more of the priority. So that's just, that's how I feel about it. I'm not saying I didn't like it. I'm not saying I didn't like the jokes. I'm not saying I don't like Taika style, because I absolutely love Thor Ragnarok, and I love the freshness that he's put into this character that, was very kind of serious and a bit dull for who he is as a character in the first two films. So to kind of have this fun life put back into it, and Chris Hemsworth getting the opportunity to really play up, his comedy aspects, which has been really great to see.
Yeah,
But
because I think that's what that's what Chris Hemsworth's kind of strongest at, I think.
mhm.
So
And I like that they gave Taika the space to kind of do what he wanted. But I personally, you're dealing with Jane having cancer and dealing with that, and you're having Thor being lost and seeing Jane for the first time in forever, and you know still not fully processing all the things that he's lost. Um, so we're dealing with like some really serious topics here. And it felt a little bit in the vein of, let's just make a joke of Thor's depression and Endgame kind of vibes a little bit. Not
yeah,
as not
see,
as severe, but I kind of got that sensibility that I'm like, I really just want to see them have a real conversation that doesn't have 10 billion jokes about it in it. I really just want them to have some conversations after not seeing each other, kind of addressing, their breakup, and, you know, I wanted more of them together having like real conversations as opposed to kind of all the silliness that was happening.
yeah,
Not to say that I didn't like the silliness, I just was looking for more kind of in-depth conversations between the two of them, since we haven't seen them together in so long.
I
And
almost
I was
feel
missing
then,
that.
rather unfortunately, that this story has come at a time in Thor's journey when tonally Thor is very
Just gonna be like
different
that.
from the story he's at, which is
Yeah.
weird because I suppose the story follows the tone and the tone follows the story. It is it is an unusual thing, and it's a strange thing sometimes for me to get my head around where exactly I sit on it, because I found Ragnarok very funny. I found Love and Thunder very, very funny. But you are absolutely not wrong when you say there are some serious things at play that should have been treated way more seriously in this movie in particular. And certainly those are my feelings towards his depression in Endgame. They are. This has been the case with me since I first saw Endgame. There was parts of it that I felt, yes, okay, the humor works then. There's also parts of it where I think, like his conversation with Frigga in Endgame, that I think really do work on a serious level.
Yeah.
But it's too much treated as a joke, and I think there are elements of this movie that are treated too much of a joke, or not seriously enough. But then again, you wouldn't want to you wouldn't want the movie to feel messy in tone, would you? Because, but then again, you'd question why those story elements are in there in the first place if you didn't want them to feel serious. So it
Yeah.
is a little bit of a strange thing to try and think about. Hello, Kimber,
Hi,
in the
Kimber.
chat. What are your feelings on Thor, Love and Thunder?
I
And
loved it. I
it's
thought it was fun. The things that we were dealing with, I wanted more. I wanted more from those moments as opposed to just a bunch of punchlines, in certain
yes,
moments.
because look, you've got Natalie Portman coming back to
Mhm.
the MCU after what, 9 years, 8 years?
Yeah, about 8 years away.
It's a long time, and look, I like Natalie Portman anyway. I've always really liked Natalie Portman. Hello, Paul Holmes in the chat as
Hello.
well. Paul loved it. That's nice. Nice to hear. We're talking about at the minute the kind of
The tone.
the more serious elements of Love and Thunder that maybe weren't treated as seriously as they deserve to be, like Jane's cancer diagnosis and her dealing through all that. Because I really like Jane in this movie. This
Yes.
is a movie that actually gets you to like Jane, that gives
And
Jane
their
nice
chemistry
things
was
to do.
the best it's been, because I watched the first 2 Thor movies kind of before seeing this one, trying to remember, how the relationship started and if I could actually see them together, and, it was my brain kind of trying to force them together because, pretty people look pretty together, and you want pretty people to be pretty together. But yeah, the chemistry was not as vibing as it was in this movie.
But I think that is down to the fresh tone of Thor,
Mhm.
of the Thor movies in
I
general.
agree, and Thor is,
Now that
who he is now, yeah.
yes, now that he is allowed to be in this universe, he is allowed to be more silly, more kind of expressive, more uh, boisterous almost. That chemistry is able to grow and feel very, very authentic, very, very real, as opposed to kind of stodgy that it
Yes,
felt
like,
like
I loved
earlier on.
like, I saw some people kind of describe the montage of their relationship as, like, an SNL skit, but I thought it was
The
adorable
roller
and
skating flashback.
hilarious. Yes. And then, like, even him asking, "So, are you still rollerblading?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh,
I
yeah, I
look,
rollerblade every day."
I thought it worked really, really quite well. Their relationship
'Cause
with
we
each
didn't see
other.
their relationship, we didn't get to see them together as, like, a couple
No.
living day to day. So seeing that little flashback and kind of seeing the reason, like, with, Core kind of narrating why they kind of came apart was really smart. Like, I liked the way they handled it, it was funny, but you also kind of got the emotion as to, like, why they they ended things because they were just both afraid of, I'm gonna lose this thing. I've lost so much already. I'm probably gonna lose this too. So maybe if I close myself off, it won't hurt as much. And they both kind of were in that mindset. And also just kind of focusing in on their own things and distancing themselves. So it made sense. And I liked seeing their dynamic together in that couple aspect too. And it was just kind of a fun, silly way to do it. So I loved all those flashbacks.
I think this is the good thing about Korg really as well. I think Korg's almost become more of a useful character rather than an actual character. Like, oh, he's got a funny voice. It's Taika. He's got a everybody likes him. He's funny. Let's use him for narration and the odd little quip. Like you can see Korg coming into other movies just to kind of tell everyone what's happening and things
Yes.
like that. He's become what Michael Pena in Ant-Man was.
I was so upset. I'll just throw that out there that, like, literally, like, leading into Endgame, I wanted him to just do a recap of every MCU movie leading up to, like, Endgame in his whole little thing that he does.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that would have been so funny.
But you could
Missed
have that in
opportunity.
you could have that now in a different narration style from Korg that's all
Yes.
very much like,
Yeah.
let me tell you the story of the Avengers. They're so great. I love them so much. Aren't
Yes.
they just the most beautiful people in the world?
Yeah.
And it's just that kind of exaggerated excitement of storytelling delivery that I like from Korg. I've liked Korg since he
Mhm.
first showed up. I find him generally quite hilarious, but I thought it maybe was another example of you could have give this movie some real heavy emotion if Korg had have actually died
I
when he was
know.
crushed, you know,
Yeah.
rather than just, oh, it's only the face that matters, so
And he
he's
ended up
still
with
alive.
Dwayne The Rock.
He ended up with Dwayne the Rock, which is just
Who has a little
brilliant.
mustache.
It is. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. I do want to come back to some of the things that were said in the chat, though. Kimber's said the goats were her favourite. Taika is daddy. He had a lot of things he was trying to balance. I thought he did a decent job. He focused in on what he knows best. And I think
Yeah,
that's why this movie was, a
the
success. And that's
style
why
it
I
was.
liked this movie. I really
Yeah,
did like this movie. I always tend to have fun with MCU movies. I do appreciate it when they do very, very different things. This is why I'm a fan of the Eternals. I like it when MCU movies are very distinct in their genre. And while necessarily I don't think Love and Thunder was particularly genre distinctive, it's certainly tonally distinctive because these last two Thor movies, and I think this one even more so than Ragnarok, is just a silly MCU movie. You're
yeah,
going to this movie for a silly MCU movie that you don't get with, Shang-Chi. You don't get much
yeah.
silliness there. You don't
No,
get
you get
much,
some in the beginning, but kind of before he becomes Shang-Chi.
yeah, you don't get much silliness in Multiverse of Madness, even, or No Way Home. There's not much silliness there.
Yeah,
There's craziness in Multiverse of Madness, there's horror and weirdness, but this is goofiness. This is a goofy romantic comedy,
yeah. He said
really.
he definitely
And I think
wanted to play up the love aspect of the story and kind of
and I
throw
think they
people
do
off
do
with
that.
that, and he does. Yeah. Um, all his scenes with Jane, kind of them returning, you feel that love lost, that lost love because there's no love lost.
Yes.
Uh, and you feel kind of the longing and missing each other, and like even her just like asking him, "Do you have a girlfriend?" Or because you think after 8 years and her kind of cool entrance, maybe she you know is over it, but they pepper enough in there that you feel like there's still something between them. It wasn't a decision made because of loss of love. It was a decision made because they were both scared of how much it would hurt to lose this thing. So they themselves off to the emotions. So you
Yeah.
felt all of that, which I appreciated. So he was able to. I'm not saying he didn't make me feel anything because everything was a joke, but I felt like I wanted to sit in the emotional moments in a deeper way than
Yeah.
than we were kind of able to.
And look, I don't disagree with that at all. Paul brings up a good point in the chat. Actually, he loved the line, "I choose to spend my last moments with her," and this is the end of the movie. And
Yeah.
I think you do feel the emotion then.
Yeah,
This is
like when
the
she's
this
in the
is the
hospital
climax.
bed and he's telling her, "No, I want us to figure this out together. And every time you use that hammer, it's killing you, and I can't let you do that. I can't live with myself if I didn't even just try to ask you to stay and try to fight this together." And like those moments were really beautiful, and
Yeah.
just to get a little bit of seriousness and levity after kind of all this bombastic kind of fun and silliness, to kind of get a breathable moment with the two of them being real about a situation. And it's like, I think the best way to deal with, traumatic situations is with humor. And so I think that's maybe also the kind of message maybe he was putting out there, that, people with cancer and things like that, a lot of them do try to cope by, just kind of being funny about it and making a joke of it. So maybe that's kind of also something he was trying to get across. But when it kind of really got real, I like that he took that moment for them to kind of sit with it and have a
Yeah.
real conversation about it. I just wanted more of that.
And I get that, but I would
Yeah.
have to say at least we did get it when it really, really mattered
Mhm.
in the story of this movie,
Yes.
which was then, and with kind of Jane's final sacrifice, I suppose it was, wasn't it? Really, she
Yeah.
called out to Mjolnir for the last time, went
Yeah,
up
she knew he
to
needed her, so I'm just gonna go do this last, you
up to
know.
Christian Bale and helped him
Yeah.
obviously defeat our villain. And let's talk about our villain. Actually, Kimber says Christian Bale legit creeped her out.
Yes.
Paul says Christian Bale looked creepy in the dark. His skeletal face would have loved to see more of him. And I would have to agree with Paul there. I would have very much liked to see more of gore in this
Yes,
movie.
like, I would have loved to see more of him actually going and killing the gods,
Yes.
at least one set of, battles that they alluded to of him taking out, because somebody kind of made the comment, it was very similar to, Multiverse of Madness, like, you're saying Multiverse of Madness in the title, but we didn't really get that much multiverse, and
Yeah.
in this film, you're calling him Gore the God Butcher, but we don't really see him butchering that many
We
gods.
see him kill one god
Yes.
at the
So
beginning.
I would have liked to kind of see his trail of destruction as opposed to just alluding to it. At least one, because like there are several, they kind of allude to several places he goes and kills a bunch of gods. So I would like at least see like the Sith battle and see how Sith, you know,
Yeah. I,
yeah.
I like that Sif came back.
Yes, because it
Like,
was I mean, I have to say, like, while the Warriors 3 are not like, oh, the greatest
oh, get
characters,
rid of those
I
people.
well, I was really kind of bummed at how these movies treated them. And even in Ragnarok, like, at least give them a little bit of fight. Like, I liked that, you're setting these up as great warriors, like, good enough to fight by Thor's side. At least have them go out fighting, go out, like, with defending themselves a little bit instead of just getting, like, stabbed and done. Because, like,
You
even
said this on
Frigga
our watch along.
Frigga got a badass death. Like, she got to fight, the head, elf guy and have this heroic death and look like a cool badass. So if you're gonna set up these characters as people who are good enough to fight with Thor, at least have them go out swinging and fighting. But the way they just were killed off just made me kind of sad. So and yeah, like Jamie Alexander couldn't actually be in that movie because of circumstances. So I like that they kind of played around that. Okay, she was maybe off doing something else, and
Yeah.
she's still here. She's still canon, and
Yeah, because
we even see her at the end training with Axel, in some sword
we do.
fighting. So yeah,
I like, I'm sure many other people assumed that because Asgard was destroyed, that Sif was bye-bye.
yeah, we
If
didn't really
not
know
with
her fate.
Yeah, if not in the destruction of Asgard, in Thanos' destruction of everybody who survived.
Yes, and we got to see her a
Um,
little bit like a flashback version of her in Loki, but that was like a
yeah,
version of her that was still alive. So we really
yeah.
weren't sure of her fate. So it was
But
really
no,
kind
I
of cool
like
getting
that
to see her come back but I would have
this.
liked to see that battle where she lost her arm and all of these things. So we at least
Yeah,
got to see Gore the God Butcher live up to his name at least one time.
it was almost this was the movie to bring back the old Thor people.
Yeah.
That weren't in Ragnarok, because Ragnarok was a significant departure
Yeah.
from those previous Thor movies. This is keeping the same tone, but it's bringing back the elements of the first two Thor movies. Darcy and Eric Selvig are in the movie, even.
Yeah, I mean, they're not gonna not pop up if Jane has cancer because they were two integral kind of parts of her aspects of this story. So I like
Yeah,
that they were still peppered into the story and still kind of important in her life. Because yeah, we hadn't seen Dorothy, Darcy.
Dorothy,
I almost said
Judy
Dorothy.
Garland showing
Yeah,
up.
I think I'm just thinking of Thor riding Stormbreaker as a broom, and that was in my head. Like the Wicked Witch.
Oh dear.
Wee. But yeah, like we haven't seen Darcy since the WandaVision, so it was
No,
good to see that she's still in Jane's life and still there, kind of supporting her. So yeah, it was nice to kind of see everyone who has been associated with this character kind of at least be mentioned. Because even the Warriors 3, we do get a mention of their death too when Cork is kind of narrating all that he's lost. So I like that they were at least incorporated in people that he lost that were important to him, as opposed to just like, yeah, stupid Warriors 3, who cares? Which, yeah, kind of that's kind of how you should feel about them based on what we got from them. But, I still want to appreciate them as people in Thor's life. So I like that the movie at least tried to a little bit.
I get that. Oh, I
Yeah.
get that. Going back to Gore though, and Christian Bale. I mean, he's absolutely nailing it, isn't it? As
Yeah.
we would have expected someone like Christian Bale to do. He's incredibly scary in this
Yes.
movie. He's really, really impressive, and he really makes you want to see more of him. Like we say, this. I would have wanted more scenes of Gore butchering gods,
Yeah.
because it would have given us more creepy Christian Bale. And he was so good. Those scenes in the cage with all the kids, and he's just kind of creating shadow snakes and shadow spiders and things. And I don't know, the makeup on him's excellent.
Yeah. Well, because
And
I mean, the comics, he's supposed to have no nose, but Taika was like, he's gonna look way too much like Voldemort if
he is
we
gonna
do
look
that.
like Voldemort.
Um, but how do you feel about this? Our villain is sympathetic and they're only bad because they're corrupted by something corrupting them. So it's like Wanda and the Darkhold and Shang-Chi's dad hearing the voices because of the thing calling him. And
This
now
is not
him with the sword kind of, but it's like I wanted it to be more clear that like the sword was already just kind of calling to him because they felt something in him in losing his faith in something. But I think they played it more that he was only kind of bad because of the sword, you know? So, I don't know, in my own mind, I can reconcile that with, okay, well, maybe they're not doing the thing where he's only bad because a thing is making him bad. He actually has these kinds of negative thoughts that are propelling him, and the sword is just enhancing that negativity, you know? So I don't know.
yes,
I think more about things than you probably should, but I don't know. I wanted that to be more clear.
potentially. But I view Gore's depiction here as a man who has lost his faith. And yes, this sword Kate, called out to him because he had lost his faith because of the death of his daughter.
Yeah.
And what is this is not a new concept for villains. This is certainly not a new concept for Marvel villains. It's give them a reason why they became bad.
Yeah.
In theory. And his reason is, I'm sad because my daughter died and the gods wouldn't help me. So I then have a justifiable reason to be
To
mad at the
believe that.
gods and
Yeah.
therefore go after the gods. And it
Yeah.
makes total sense, and it actually makes them feel like a believable character and a three-dimensional character, not someone
Yes.
who's just mustache
So
twirlingly
I kind of
evil for the
took it
sake
like
of being
that.
mustache twirlingly evil.
Yeah, so I took it like that when I first watched it, and then in kind of like seeing someone make this comparison to, well, Wanda was only bad because the Darkhold, and Shang-Chi's dad was only bad because the thing was calling to him. So is it kind of this easy, redeemable villain trope to just have it be something just gnawing at them, as opposed to something actually in them that's making them do these bad things? Because I think it's easier to think to appreciate a villain that you can sympathize with because you understand their motivations, like, because we open with him losing his daughter, so we already are feeling for him, and then when we see how shitty these gods are, that is builds that up. But then we get a lot of information about how the sword kind of is corrupting him and making him do all of these things, and in kind of comparing it to those other, now it's kind of becoming this villain trope of the redeemable thing that's making them bad. That kind of put a little earworm in my ear. I'm like,
Are
is
you
that what they
suggesting
were
this is a
trying to
bad
do?
thing, though? Are you suggesting this is a bad thing? I'm not
I
quite
mean, I
sure.
think it's just like an easy
It
kind
is.
of.
It is. It's easy it's easy because it works. I think
Yes.
it does work. I think it always works because it
I personally would prefer to see it as he has his own personal vendetta,
and
and the
but
sword
I
is just
saw it
and
as
the
that.
sword is just enhancing that.
Yes, I saw it as
Okay.
that. I definitely saw it as that, and
Okay.
I saw
So,
Wonders as
like,
that
yeah,
as well.
that's how I saw it as, but I didn't know if kind of hearing that comparison like tainted that image for me and made me feel like it was more of this kind of cop out thing, you know?
No, I would disagree with that. I don't view it as a cop out at all. I view it as just a way of justifying villainous activity through
Okay.
a traumatic event,
Okay. Yeah.
almost, which is what we get.
Which, yes, good point,
Um,
Kimber. That
yes,
yes, like it wasn't
exactly.
until he saw that his gods just were making a joke of him that it kind of called out to him.
Um, Paul asks, did anyone get a hella vibe from the Eternity statue Gore wished to? The antlers looked hella like. They did. They did.
Yes.
They also
I
looked a
looked at a
little
lot
bit
of.
like comic book Galactus, but I don't want to try and
Well,
think
no,
too heavy
that
about things.
Eternity, that Eternity character, like I actually saw some comic book images of Eternity, and it looks just like that, the horns and everything. So it's very comic accurate to Eternity in the comics.
I hope I'm not reading too much into things by suggesting he looks like a Galactus helmet, because what is this
Have you been talking to
helmet
Billy,
called?
Kimber?
Sounds like it. Like the center of, because this Eternity figure was the center of the universe, and
Yes.
you needed
So that's how they
Stormbreaker.
look. That's how they look in the comics. They look like Galactus, like all kind of filled with stars, like that.
I see. Paul also mentioned before the subplot of whether it's a subplot or not, or just a running gag of Stormbreaker being jealous of Mjolnir, which was
Yes.
really funny
Yes.
and
Every time
really well
he just
played.
comes in like when like Thor is suddenly trying to call
Out,
Mjolnir from Jane, and
outstanding comedic timing.
Stormbreaker just kind of creeps in like, oh hi, I was looking for you.
It's very good comedic
Here, have your
timing.
first beer. Like what?
You've got to appreciate that.
He's like tickling.
You really do have to appreciate that.
Yeah.
As a story, I think it does give Thor a purpose again, because Thor's obviously at the end of Endgame, he's going off with the Guardians. We see the Guardians briefly at the beginning of this movie. We don't get as much of the Guardians as I maybe thought we were going
Unexpected.
to.
Yeah.
But it's at the end of the day, it's not their movie, is it? They
No.
show up, they have a bit of fun, they and they say bye to Thor. Thor says bye to them.
Yes.
Okay, they're perfectly great. And there's not much to be said about the Guardians because they don't do a great deal, but they were only in there to kind of, I think, for story continuity purposes. I think the only reason the Guardians were
Yes, because he
probably
left
in
with
there.
them at the end. So
But obviously he goes with them to find himself again. And I think, but look, by the end of this movie, he does find his purpose again. He realizes that, I think he takes a lot of inspiration from Jane and from Jane's ultimate kind of sacrifice, and finds almost the ability to love again, because he's been through so much and he's lost so many of the people that he's loved, that it's got to be obviously very hard for him at this point to develop connections with people. So he needed that kind of reintroduction to Jane almost to allow him to do that again. And now, he's got an adopted daughter at the end of this movie who was Gore's daughter, who Eternity reincarnated.
Who's played by Chris Hemsworth's real life daughter. So the chemistry there was, of course, very adorable.
Yes, of course it was. I also like how you get a little thing of Heimdall's son, Axel.
Yes, and like I think
developing
all the kids,
his powers.
Yes, well, I like the kind of subplot with the kids because Taika's kids were in some of those kids. Chris Hemsworth's other kids were in some of those kids. Natalie Portman's kids, Christian Bale's kids, all of their kids were like in this movie. Yeah.
What do you think of the reusing of Matt Damon and Sam Neill and the other Hemsworth as the actors?
Thank you, JMB, for saying hey, and he hasn't seen it yet. So.
Oh, hello, yes, JMB. Please get out of the chat quickly. We love you and we appreciate you for stopping by, but we do not want to spoil this movie for you. So, hello, JMB. You're wonderful. We love you.
Yes, his name is Astrid. No, he wants to be called Axel. Paul.
I think he only wants to be called Axel because of Axl Rose, though. So this is
he does. Yeah,
this is a bit strange. I don't think there's some sort of identity crisis going on. I think he just wants to be referred to as Axl Rose, which is a bit strange.
Rose is cool.
Yeah. Axl Rose is not cool, by the way. He isn't. What were we talking about, Janine? The actors.
Yes.
Yes. What do we think of them returning? Because I kind of hate it, but also feel like, of course, they're there.
And then they have a whole conversation. Oh, should we be working out a new play for this? She's like, oh, brother. Oh, well, she didn't say no. Yeah, Melissa McCarthy as Hella and her
Yeah.
husband coming back to be like the director of this this play. It was very,
Of,
very silly. I thought that was a very
of
funny part of Thor Ragnarok, so I appreciated it.
it was,
I
but
appreciate because I mean, if New Asgard is now becoming this kitschy tourist attraction, you would have these actors come back and do
you would.
ridiculous, you know,
You
shows.
would.
And now they're doing the end of Odin's life as opposed to the death of Loki's story. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
I
just how they depicted it and just how silly it was. Like the fact that it's Matt Damon again in a silly cameo and Chris Hemsworth's brother playing him and Sam Neill, a frequent collaborator of Taika Waititi, and yeah,
is it
they're just
not?
great.
Does it not ruin, but the one-off joke that it was in Ragnarok of this cameo and these actors, I think was great. And to bring them back, I think nullifies that a little bit.
I think
I
if
acknowledge that it is now going to become a running gag, but until it gets to running gag
I
status, I'm at
yeah,
now the point where I'm thinking, I know it's a minute thing in this entire
but
movie,
I
but
get where you're coming from.
should it have really been brought back?
I get where you're coming
Think of a
from, but
different joke.
had the story of New Asgard not been this thing with cruise ships coming and tourist attractions and all of these things, I think it makes make sense that you would have these little
Yeah.
stage shows because I've been on a cruise, so you have things like that when you go to places yeah, and it's a kind of a touristy thing. Stage actors doing a shitty reinterpretation of something definitely feels very much a cruise stop, a touristy type thing. So if
You
New
are right.
Asgard didn't have that element, I would agree with you. But because it does, it kind of fits pretty perfectly.
We will get on to Paul's question about a particular other demigod in a little while.
Yes.
Because I do want to talk about the King of New Asgard and the fact that she wasn't barely in the movie. Janine.
I know. Oh, she looked good in those suits, though. She looked really hot in those suits.
Tessa Thompson looked unbelievable in those suits. And there was not enough of it. There was
She did the
not
Old
enough of it.
Spice commercial. But see,
Janine.
like I thought there was going to be more of that, of just her kind of being frustrated with the kind of commercialization of her home and
I don't
New
care.
Asgard. So I thought we were going to get her more of her in that aspect, and she was going to have her own kind of side plot, which would have been interesting and would have been like, played more into I want to get back in the fight because I'm sick of just like playing ball and having corporate meetings and dealing with investors, and I don't want to deal with any of this. So I wish we would have gotten more of her and more of her in hot sexy suits, and have that be kind of a whole side plot line that would kind of push her more to like joining this fight because she's just like, I can't deal with this anymore. I need to get back in battles. There's a one-off line where she says that, but kind of just based off of the trailers and like kind of what they were setting up, showing her do the commercials and not seeming very happy about it and sitting in meetings and opening a Infinity Cones ice cream shop. I felt like that would have been more of a fun kind of plot to follow with her.
Yes,
So I was a little bummed that we didn't get that, but
I
and the fact that they
completely
sidelined her for the final battle was kind of like,
yes. I entirely, and I mean entirely agree.
yes.
There was just yes, it's Tessa. I mean, I like the character of Valkyrie anyway. Forget the fact that Tessa Thompson's just heart eyes unbelievable. But I like the character of Valkyrie anyway. I think she's an interesting character that we
Yeah.
just haven't had the chance to have enough time really with her when it's just kind of her. There's
In her
one or
element,
two scenes in this movie
I wanted
where
to see
she's
more
actually,
king.
yes, there's one or two scenes in this movie where she's actually
Kinging it
opening up
up.
somewhat. You
Yeah.
know, there's one scene where she's getting drunk with Korg, which was it with Korg? I don't know. Is it with Korg? I can't exactly remember. I
Yes. On
think
the
it is.
ship.
Yes.
Yeah.
That actually feels like, oh, an actual character scene for Valkyrie. More of this, please. And we
And even
just don't get more of that. And it's so unfortunate. And like you said, I wanted to see more of her in charge of New Asgard. But I
mhm.
also wanted to see more of her actually fighting, like in the final battle. Like, surely use her in that. I know that it's more about Thor and Jane. I get that it's more about
So
Thor and
yes,
Jane.
have Thor and Jane take on Gore, and like she could be with the kids helping them fight the shadow monsters or something,
Right?
you
Just
know?
even that. There's no reason to not have her in there. And more Tessa Thompson can only be a good thing. So I hope we get more of Valkyrie in the
Yes,
future.
and I loved the building of like kind of her relationship with Jane and them kind of having this girl bond kind of thing that
Yeah.
didn't really get more at either. So they had like some peppering of like awesome things with her that just I was wanting more of, and so kind of bummed that I didn't get more.
It is a shame.
Yeah.
It is a shame. I think. Well, let's. Well, we haven't talked about.
Circle
Uh,
back.
we haven't talked about Zeus or any of the other gods in that one particular
Yeah.
massive scene yet, have we? Because they seem to like doing this at the minute as well. To the MCU, Janine, they go somewhere in the middle of the movie that's all crazy and full of a load of nonsense,
Yeah,
and
essentially.
we're just sat there trying to make heads or tails of what the hell's going on. We're enjoying it, but ultimately it never seems to matter
Yeah.
why they went there in the first place. Like, sure, okay, you steal Zeus's thunderbolt. You could have done it with Stormbreaker, you could have done it with Thor's lightning powers, couldn't you? Did you really need Zeus's thunderbolt?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
maybe.
the whole point was to get more gods, but seeing gods are and then it's like more it's just for showing you more that like Gore is right. Gods are pieces of
It is.
shit.
It is.
So like
Let's talk about Zeus. Now look, if anybody is excited for tomorrow's episode of Monday Madness, we have a whole game at the end of tomorrow's episode that I have called "Did Zeus really do that?" but
yeah,
can also be referred to as Zeus be weird, which
yeah.
is the sign behind me. Um, Zeus is weird, and this is why I think that Russell Crowe's portrayal of Zeus, that Steve did not like in his opening chat
Yeah.
comments.
Because it made him
Um,
too silly when we were getting to like this menacing Zeus that we were supposed to get in this mid credit scene.
I think this is an outstanding portrayal of Zeus. People are too happy and familiar with people like Laurence Olivier playing Zeus that
Or Rip Torn's Disney Hercules
they
version
forget
of
that
Zeus.
this is exactly what Zeus was like: egotistical, loves orgies, and is just so full of himself
I just have
and
one question
ridiculous.
though.
What?
What is the bow god's role in these orgies?
I do not want to think about that, Janine. I do not want to think about that in the slightest. Also, like, I presume all the gods are invited to the orgy unless Zeus uninvites them, right?
Yeah.
Is that Zeus's? Is
Also,
that his
Zeus seems like
deal?
he'd be having more than one orgy a year. Just
Really?
saying.
Yeah, exactly. The way, see, I think all of us here really liked Russell Crowe as this
Version of
ridiculous
Zeus.
depiction of Zeus because I actually think it works really well. And I think Russell Crowe, I know his accent was ridiculous, but this was entirely the tone and portrayal of Zeus they were going for was completely ridiculous. And it was played so well in that sense. It may have not been, the statuesque Zeus you are used to seeing, but in terms of actually mentality and what we kind of know of, Zeus in mythology to be like,
It's
is
kind of
it not
accurate.
really accurate? Is
Yeah,
it not really
kind of.
accurate? It
Yes.
kind of is.
So
Bow
yes, we
to
do
the
get a
dumpling god. I like that from Kimber. That's a nice pun
yes.
there. Bow to
Definitely
the
been talking
dumpling
to
god.
Billy today. Um, uh, but yeah, it definitely plays into the mid credit scene. Uh, yes, to get back to Paul's question about the casting of Hercules.
I apologize, but Paul's also just brought up. Did you read he was meant to play Satan? Satan was supposed to be in this movie.
What?
Really? Are you getting me excited now?
Well, I mean, Kimber had talked about there's like a potential director's cut because there was a lot he cut out. Um,
Ooh.
but yes,
If
I
it's
mean,
just bizarre god things, then I'm in for it.
I let out a specific squeal because
A
the actor who plays
squeal.
yes, because the actor who plays Hercules is a fan favorite character in Ted Lasso.
He
So
is.
yes, I was very
Now,
excited to see to
well,
see
this
him.
is our mid credit scene, and I think our mid credit scene is. I think it's more future
More
exciting than our
more
post credit
story
scene.
element relevant than
Our post credit scene, I think, is great in the sense that we actually see Valhalla depicted. We recognise that now Valhalla, Jane, is permitted into Valhalla. Heimdall's there. Idris Elba's back.
yeah.
Just for a little cameo at the
Well,
post
like he
credit
said,
scene.
everybody coming back.
Everybody coming back. But we see our depiction of Valhalla, and I suppose lately we've kind of seen a few more afterlife depictions. That in Moon Knight you got all that.
Yeah.
Is it
Mhm.
Teshawat, the hippo god, and all the
Yes. Mhm.
boat through the sand and all that business? That was the afterlife.
Yeah.
Um, Ancestral plane in Black Panther. That's the
Mhm.
afterlife. We've seen depiction of that. So this idea of the afterlife, I think, is just growing now, and we've seen more and more depictions of that now. So we know that Valhalla is a place that, who's to say multiversal, you can't go into these kind
Go
of
there
places and drag
and
someone
yeah.
out of it.
Yeah.
Who's to
Possible.
say what can happen in that kind of thing? Kimber Idris is also fine as hell. That is
Yes,
kind of
very,
true as
very.
far as men go. As far as men go, he's
Yes.
not quite on the level of Tessa Thompson for me personally, but that's my own personal tastes and things like that. But I appreciated that about the post-credit scene, and I even though there was not a massive amount of story element there, it was a closure to Jane, to Jane's story, and the fact
Yes,
that
and I wanna say
her,
there
after
is
being the mighty Thor in this
yes.
movie, clearly being worthy of Mjolnir, and then being allowed into Valhalla, it's great for Jane.
Yes,
It's
but I
great for
also
Jane.
think
I'm not fighting it, Kimber.
I
Oh
wanna
no.
say I read a comic book element that, she does come back because she's in Valhalla and that because she's there, it finds a way to bring her back in the comics. So,
Okay.
I don't know if that's also maybe teasing a potential,
Well,
return for
look,
her if they
there's
figured that out somehow.
there's there's a ridiculous amount of realm and universe hopping these days in
Yeah,
the MCU. So who's to say? I mean, literally, didn't you know Stephen and whatever his actual name is, Mark Spector in Moon Knight, didn't they actually go to the afterlife and end up coming
and
back
return back,
from it?
yeah,
They
that is
did.
true.
And so did T'Challa in Black Panther. He actually went to the ancestral plane,
The plane and came back.
spoke to T'Chaka, and came back. So
Yeah.
maybe this is an actual thing that can happen. So maybe we can go there. And look, we've seen in terms of time change or time travel that people have gone back and spoke to dead people already, even in Thor's case, speaking to his mother,
Yeah.
speaking to Frigga. So who's to say that? I mean,
You
this is
can't
look,
get
this is
Jane
comic
back in
book
some
movie.
capacity.
Well,
Yeah.
exactly, this is comic book
Anything's
movies. This is
possible.
Marvel movies. Nobody's ever really dead, even when they are dead. But if you bring
Yeah.
back, if you can go into the afterlife and bring other people back, who's to say villains can't bring Thanos back?
Ugh.
We wouldn't want that happening, would we?
No.
But who's to say? Who is to say? But yes, the mid-credit scene, Janine, I think is more exciting from a story perspective.
Yes, because in the comics as well, I believe Hercules and Thor are rivals. He's like the kind of bad boy version to Thor's kind of, clean cut uh, uh, Asgardian hero, mythical hero. So Hercules and Thor do have this kind of rivalry in the comic books. So I think that's definitely something interesting that they're setting up in future films. So I'm excited. I
I,
love that actor. He's so great in Ted Lasso. When I saw it was him, I was like, ah, it's right out. So
I also
I
just
was very
like
happy.
how we're getting Greek people in as well.
Yeah.
We're getting Greek mythological figures in our seemingly Norse mythological movie. We're getting
Yes.
everybody in now. This movie has opened up. I mean, this is another thing that I suppose Phase 4 has opened up a great deal of, is different gods, not just heroes. You
Yeah.
know, even with in the Eternals and the Arisham and all those people, they're like godly powers, aren't they? They're ridiculously godly creatures, I suppose. And with this movie and other things as well, Moon Knight, the gods are very much present, and this is only further proof that this is going to continue. If you're actually bringing Hercules, and presumably then Russell Crowe's Zeus also comes back whenever
Yeah.
Brett Goldstein plays Hercules again. I mean, what he's going to come into, I don't know if it's a fifth Thor movie and how long away, I should say, is that. But then again, we also have to remember that it's going to be San Diego Comic-Con soon, and apparently the MCU is doing a whole big setup thing.
Yeah. Hall H
So
situation. So
I
what will
I,
be
Im- I
revealed there?
imagine we're going to be made pretty clear on some speculatory things after that. Really, I would hope.
Yeah.
For example, I'm excited about Kit Harington wielding a sword in a Marvel movie.
Yes, and the
I
Blade.
want
I'm
that
excited to
from the end of
see.
Eternals. I want that.
I'm excited to see Blade and his interpretation of the character.
Blade. Yeah. But yes, it's I am someone here who hasn't even watched a frame of Ted Lasso. But I'm perfectly aware of how much people love Brett Goldstein
Yes, so great.
as a bad boy. So it kind of fits really well,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
he's very grouchy and lovable. He's a lovable grump. He's our lovable grump stereotype that we say never gets enough love.
I like that. I like that.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm excited for that because I'm excited for more gods in the MCU. The whole Infinity Saga was rather scientifically based, I suppose, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yes, you had Thor, who was a god, but nothing
Watch it,
else was
Kimber. Watch
remotely.
Ted Lasso. You will love it. It's so great. It's so great. Morgan can't watch it, so I've been pushing him, but I don't think he can watch it yet because it's on
And
Apple TV, and
yeah, I
Apple
don't.
TV is not a thing there.
Oh, Apple TV is a
Apple
thing.
TV
I
is a
just don't
thing, but
have it.
you just don't have it. Okay. Fair
I
enough.
just
We'll
don't
watch
have
it.
it.
Figure out a way to watch it, Morgan, because it's really good. And it's
Um,
about football, and you love
I
football.
know
What's
it's
wrong
about
with you?
football, but it's also isn't it not annoyingly about football? Although Paul also, yes, okay.
Yes, yes.
Um, I don't like to live in my doom and gloom. I just do. Um,
You
it
will
might
appreciate.
cheer me up from the doom and gloom of United, though, Paul. But let's not get it. Let's leave that discussion for a different time. I refuse to speak to you about football because it's just enjoyment and unenjoyment in two
Yes,
stark opposites, isn't it, these days?
yes. But
Um,
Kimber, you will love Ted Lasso. You will, and you will love Brett Goldstein in it. He's so good. He's so great. So good.
no, what was I talking about? Oh yes, Phase 4. Yeah, the Infinity Saga was mostly grounded it in science. Yes, there was obviously space things in there, but even that is still, it's not a great deal of gods and legends and mythology that does exist in Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
And Phase 4 very much is delving into more of that territory. And I like it. I like that kind of thing. I would happily get further and further away from heroes like Iron Man, and unless it's obviously, well, with the amount of characters we've got now, I suppose it kind of, you have to almost separate it, don't you? So you get your gods, and then you get
And
your
you get your
very, very
human.
street level people.
Yes, but I still appreciate them for being like the Winstons of the MCU, the Ghostbusters Winstons of
Mm,
the MCU, that they are literally like, okay, this is so weird. Like, we've never been to space. What is happening right now? Who is this guy? Like, yeah, I like that they at least react to it in a way that we would like. This is crazy. How is this happening? So
I just think
they
sometimes I
ground it a little
confuse.
bit for the
Well,
average
yeah,
man.
yeah. Sometimes I confuse myself with and get too much in my own head about thinking about all the different types of
Yeah,
MCU
well, Sam and
things.
Bucky, like in
Yeah,
Falcon and the Winter Soldier, having that whole whole conversation breakdown about like wizards and and
yeah.
monsters and
It's
aliens
crazy.
and that whole breakdown.
It's crazy. Ultimately, I am excited for more kind of magical beings, godly beings, and mythological beings to be in the MCU going forward. It's a whole different realm you can draw from,
Yeah,
and it's only going to keep. I mean, they're never going to run out of ideas. Ultimately, are they? But they can milk that well for ideas. Well, I
definitely.
think, and I think they will, and I'm excited for that.
Same.
Yes, yes. Is there anything else we would like to say about Thor: Love and Thunder, Janine?
I mean, I feel like we're maybe missing something. Did we talk about everything?
I don't know. Did we? Talked about Gore. We talked about
Yeah.
Jane. Talked
I
about
mean, the whole
Valkyrie not getting enough
ending of
time.
kind of Dad Thor now. Like, how is that gonna? What is that
Dad
gonna look
Thor.
like going forward? Fighting
Well,
battles with love, love and thunder, the,
yeah,
the ultimate
Love
team
and
up.
Thunder. Maybe
How
we
what is
just.
that gonna look like going forward?
I've got no idea, but there's plenty of children becoming heroes in the MCU these days as well, or certainly
But
very
even
young people.
the shows have kind of been laying out, young Avengers. We got a
Yeah,
hint at um what's his name? Was his name Elijah in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that he was gonna potentially have power. His grandson was gonna have potentially have powers and be maybe a young Avenger, and Kate
yes, yeah.
Bishop, and so yeah, we're definitely kind of, the shows have peppered in some young Avengers, Wanda's kids, you know.
Miss
So
Marvel now.
mhm. So they
So
definitely have been kind of building up to those things. So maybe we get
yeah,
a young kid Thor in there.
I have
Ant-Man's daughter,
absolutely.
is they recast her for like a more seasoned actress, because she's gonna have more to do in Quantumanium, and potentially be an Ant-Man character. So with powers. So
I I just think I think that's the logical thing is you bring all the younger powered people together, and now love, as we are going to refer to her as, or Thor's adopted daughter, who was Gore's
And I
daughter,
like that she
is
call her
going to be part of that.
yes,
You
and I
know?
like that she calls him Uncle Thor, so she's not, like, erasing her dad and,
Yeah.
calling him dad or something. She calls him Uncle Thor, that's sweet. Yes, we did mention that earlier that, yeah, Taika's kids, Christian Bale's kids, Natalie Portman's kids, Chris Hemsworth's kids were all in this movie. His wife actually was the wolf woman he was making out with on The Woman Wolf. Uh, that was his wife. Um, so yeah, it was definitely a family affair in this movie. I think his youngest son was the youngest version of Thor in the kind of running montage of him like
Ah,
getting
okay.
older. So that was one of his kids as a young Thor. So yeah, we got a lot of cast kids kind of thrown in the kid scenes. But I thought that was really fun.
Kimber says she thought they were going to do an American gods thing for a minute, with the superheroes being the newly worshipped gods that Gore wants to hunt. And that sounds like an interesting idea, but
Well,
I
I
would
mean,
also
that's what
therefore think,
Zeus. That was Zeus's grievance. That's why he sent Hercules out.
yeah, that's
Uh,
true.
because he says, they used to worship us and pray for us for rain and things like that, and now all they want to do is see a superhero. Yes, Taika's kids were in there as well, like one of his kids. And
So
yeah, you
Hercules is likely going to go after all the heroes
yes, because
because
Zeus's whole kind of
Zeus.
rhetoric is they don't
What
worship
a
us anymore.
surprise, Janine! After what we've discovered in the past few days, and we'll showcase on tomorrow's episode of Monday Madness.
That Zeus is
Zeus thinks
terrible.
very highly of himself, Janine. He doesn't like it when people don't do
Pray
things.
for him or pray to him and
Yeah.
worship him. Yeah, kind of a hypocrite. He can
He
become a
also doesn't
clown
like.
and bang everybody he wants, but God forbid Hera
No,
turned
he
herself
he
into a cloud to find a hot side piece.
Zeus does not like it when other people do things that he would definitely do himself.
Yeah.
He doesn't like it. Very full of himself. Fascinating character in history, ancient history, mythology,
Yeah.
Zeus. He really is. But yeah, it's gonna be exciting. And I liked the movie. I did like the movie. Um, I don't think it's my. I don't know. I need to sit on it. I need to sit on it for a little bit more. Did the Zeus speech feel self-referential about Marvel movies? When did we become the jokes? Possibly.
I mean, maybe. Yeah, I
Possibly.
could see that. I could see that.
But who's to say? I mean, what's the next MCU thing that's coming?
Wakanda Forever.
Obviously we've still got Miss Marvel to finish, but I do think it is Wakanda Forever,
Oof,
which
I'm just
I
like,
can only.
so I really need to know about this story. Like, how are they going to work
Yeah.
around No T'Challa? Like, I really just wish they would recast him because I feel like, I can't speak to what Chadwick Boseman would have wanted, but like, he saw what this character did for people. So I would hope he would like to think that this character still continues on and exists in some form going forward. So just recast it. Like, I don't think it's a situation where it's inappropriate to recast. I mean,
No, no, but is it not? Is this one not supposed to be about the symbol of the Black Panther rather than anything
yes,
else?
and Shuri potentially taking over, but like, where's T'Challa during all of this? So, like,
Well, yeah. I mean, but if they can, this is a conversation for another time, really, isn't it? But in terms
yeah,
of
but
Wakanda Forever, if they can leave it so by the end of that movie, it's still not clear whether T'Challa is actually dead or lost or missing or wherever,
yeah,
and you potentially could recast. I think we've just got to see how that movie plays out and how that movie kind of
yeah. So I'm
is
really curious to see what
received.
this story is. Well, how is the story going to be where we can focus on Wakanda and you're calling it Black Panther? And we don't have our Black Panther. So maybe it is a thing where Shuri steps up, but what is going to happen to where Shuri is going to have to step up? So
Yeah,
I'm really, really
exactly.
curious to see what Ryan Coogler and the team have been able to kind of figure out, because they started writing this movie with Chadwick still alive. So they had to kind of reshift everything. So I'm really, really just curious to see what happens with that, and if it's going to kind of be its own thing, or we're going to, going to be working within a lead to other things.
It's going to be very, very interesting. But yeah, I think that is the next MCU
movie,
thing we have in
and
store
then
in terms of the
Quantumanium, I
movies.
think next year. I think Ant-Man and
Yeah,
the
is there
Wasp.
any more TV shows? Or I suppose we'll probably find that out soon enough with
Oh yeah, all
San
H.
Diego, won't we?
Yeah, I mean, Tisha Wright is very thin, skinny.
Yes,
So
she is. She
and
is.
like we never saw her fight. She only just used her blasters. Even in that big battle, we just saw her pew 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 pew. So like,
But we don't know, do we? We don't know what's going to
yes.
happen in that movie. We
So I
don't
don't know.
know
We'll see.
at all. It's going to be interesting. But it's not going to have anything to do with Thor. Most likely. I'd be very surprised if Thor's involved.
Yes.
Even though we were promised Thor will return. Because of course Thor will return.
Thor will
Because if
return.
there's one person who still is absolutely in love with playing his MCU character, who he's played for over 10 years now, it's Chris Hemsworth. He ain't going nowhere as
No.
Thor. He did not get bored of it like Chris Evans did, or even Downey did a little bit. I think Chris Evans mostly was the most I'm ready to move on out of everybody, wasn't he? Really?
Yeah.
But Hemsworth has never, for a minute, gone.
I mean, I think he's
maybe
the
don't
one.
want to do
He
Thor.
has the most movies out of all the solo character movies, right? Because they all got 3, and he has
he
now
has
on
4
4.
now.
Yeah.
It's very, very true. He has 4 now. 4 solo movies and 4 Avengers movies.
Yeah.
So he's been in a fair bit as
Yes.
old Thor. And we like him for that. Because we like Thor.
We do.
But, Janine, are we going to call our spoiler discussion of Thor Love and Thunder there?
Yes, I think we can call it there.
Well,
My mead is pretty much finished.
your mead, you finished your drink, you finished your mead. Oh, thank you, Paul. Sent me a link about Russell Crowe being the devil. I will have a look at that once we get off this stream. Thank you for hanging out in the chat.
Yes, thank you.
Today. Thank you for interacting. Thank you for being fun. We've had fun talking Thor, Love, and Thunder. There's been a bunch of stuff going over the bottom of the screen while this stream has been going on. If you would like to donate or become a patron of It's a Wonderful Podcast, please, there are links in the description if you would like to do that. We do not ask for it, but they are there if you would like to. Or follow us on Twitter, the show at It's a Wonderful One. Myself at the Purple Don with the 3 instead of the E and the because, Janine.
3 is the magic number.
Yourself on Twitter is where?
And you can find me at Janine Devine _ on Twitter. You can find me at Janine Devine on Instagram and TikTok. And we have a merch shop. So find it at teespring.com. It's a wonderful podcast. We have all our fun logo designs there. And I added some fun Stranger Things designs as well. So check it out. teespring.com. It's a wonderful podcast.
And we should add that to the scrolling banner at the bottom.
Yes.
We should do. Remind me to do that. But yes, subscribe please to this channel if you are here, which you are here because I wouldn't be speaking to you if you weren't here. Ding your notification bells to get notified whenever we put new videos out, because we do videos like this, live discussions about fun things in movies and TV. We do watch-alongs here. We have Monday Madness, our big crazy Monday show in its full video glory every week. On this channel as well as other fun videos like my movie collection and other things like that on this channel. But we mainly do live on the It's a Wonderful Podcast audio feed, which you can find on all your major podcast platforms: Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all those other places. And Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have you covered over there with the audio version of Monday Madness with Morgan Hasn't Seen, where Janine forces me to watch things that I haven't seen. And this month we're doing courtroom movies on Morgan Hasn't Seen, or on the main show, our flagship show, It's a Wonderful Podcast, where we celebrate those old movies every single week on there. Thank you guys for watching this fun discussion. Janine, anything else you would like to say, or just an impression of Russell Crowe as Zeus to count us out?
I can't do that. He sounds like weird, I don't know, Mario slash 3, 2, 1.
I do think it's accurate. I really do think it's accurate. Bye, guys.
Bye.